Hey, hey you, behind the glass. Yeah, kinda like a fish, right? Well, today, if you don't feel like a fish yet, you will, because we are making Pokemon into water types. That's right, I read a comment, one singular comment, and it has inspired me, so we shall begin there today. Starting with underwater Driftloom. Driftloom, one of many ghost types in this video, maybe because it was Halloween, maybe, I don't know, we'll find out. But I decided to do a underwater old diving helmet and turn it into the Driftloon. And if you're wondering why I have lines that intersect and interlap, that's because my partner Valere is turning these into live 2Ds so they can move around and shake on the screen. Isn't that cool? Wow! The cloud on its head becomes a little plethora of bubbles. The arms that it has then becomes the cords that connect you to the oxygen. And an old diving helmet is the perfect thing to take you somewhere that you just don't want to go, aka the bottom of the ocean. Isn't that fun? Doesn't that sound so Driftloony? Haha. And from here I'll pass it over to Valere to explain to you kind of what they do using Live 2D to make it move around and wiggle a little.
Thanks, Kona. So I'm brand new to using Live 2D in general, meaning there is a lot of trial and error that went on throughout my work. You'll likely see some of it here. Now, for Driftloon, I knew there were two things that needed to happen. He had to bounce, and he had to sway. The base of each of these was done by making the entire form move in a V-like shape, giving the basic vertical and horizontal motion that was needed. From there, specific motions to the tendrils were added with rotation and warp deformers to really sell that sway. This took absolutely forever because I just couldn't seem to get those motions right. Like I said earlier, trial and error. I then wanted to be sure to make the actual helmet seem to turn from side to side using my good old trusty warp deformer. I'll be using those a lot. All the final touches were then added with my favorite tool that I'll get back to a little later. Don't worry, I'll be sure to gush about it soon enough because, like I said, this thing is incredible. For now though, let me introduce you to
Dive-loon. It's said that Dive-loon are the angry spirits of divers lost at sea. Any sailor finding a lone diving helmet on their ship should resist putting it on, lest they be dragged to the bottom of the sea. Tell me he's perfect without telling me he's perfect. Look at him wiggle, look at him go. He's so good, and he's even pulling people underwater to their deaths. I think the shape matches. It looks really good. I can see him just dragging children underwater instead of into the sky. Where are they going? I don't know. Hopefully a magical Atlantis kingdom under the sea. And the next Pokemon I plan on redesigning today is Drippy. Dragapult was on my list as well for today, and they are from my list of favorites that didn't quite make it into the last video because I wasn't sure quite how to turn them into steel types. So now they get to be water. Yay! I actually ended up designing Dragapult first as a water type and Drippy came afterwards, but I wanted to put Drippy first in the video because it's the first evolution and we love natural transitions, am I right folks? But yeah, he's based off of a little tadpole and I think it looks so cute. Who doesn't love little tadpoles? I used to catch them all out in the summer. So fun, so good, yes, 10 out of 10. And I'll add the highlights and I'll hand it over to Valere really fast.
So the biggest issue I had with animating Drippy was that this was my first ever animation. Yep, aside from basic tutorials, I had not touched Live 2D yet. But because of that, I learned the power of the most useful, yet simplest tool in my entire arsenal, the warp deformer. For any aspiring Live 2D users out there, learn this tool. It does absolutely everything. It is your bread and butter. You need to squish? Warp deformer. You need to squash? Warp deformer. You need to rotate? Warp deformer. Every other tool just makes this basic process faster. If something needs to change, it can be done with a warp deformer. But that faster process is something I learned real quick with the next piece that I'll talk about. But that's for later. Right now, I'm proud to present
Drippy. Inhabiting lakes and ponds, Drippy are friendly Pokemon that love to play with boats and swimmers. They can be seen racing people and other Pokemon across the surface of the water. I imagine them to be super fast even without the help of their parentals, who shall not be named yet, because they are up next. Say hello to your boy's other favorite, Dragapult. I love this guy. Ah, the design. You know, originally I hated Dragapult because of its geometric shapes, but it really grew on me, and has nothing to do with the fact that it is a dragon ghost type, which is just mwah. Pretty quickly you'll be able to spot out that this is designed to be an axolotl with bubble jets. I didn't want it to kind of look like a Wooper at all, so I only gave it the bubble jets and then its normal geometric fins for its face as the little axolotl gills, which this thing does not have and is replaced with the bubble jets, but I think it works, like, the shape, yes. I didn't make its tail do the little near invisibility thing, and instead I added that color to the fins of the tail, and I kind of wanted its legs to look more like frog legs than axolotl legs, just because I did Drippy as a tadpole. You gotta have that continuity. I also think this piece kind of showcases the cutting up of the piece for Live 2D more than the rest of them, because you can really see each individual piece, since at the time of making this drawing, I hadn't planned for this piece to go into Live 2D, so I hadn't had it cut up yet, but you can really see the process and how that goes. I think it's very interesting. And as for the colors, I just barely shifted the bluish green of the Dragapult into a more greeny green to give it a bit more of a frog-like appearance. I think it works. I don't know why I went for frog when I was doing axolotl. It's a combination creature. That's how Pokemon work, right? Overall, though, it looks pretty nice. It looks even better once I start adding some of the highlights where you get the little light reflected, and we have the Drippy at the bottom. I forgot to mention him. He's also there shooting out of the jets of the parent. I think that's still something very important to keep between the duo of these two, and also to make sure they look like they belong next to each other, which I think they do. Now on over to Valet real fast.
Alright, it's time. The Warp Deformer might be the bread and butter, but eventually, we gotta learn to cook with more. Dragapult is where I learned to do that. Where I learned two big tools. One, the Rotation Deformer, just look at his little leggies go with him swimming right there. And two, the almighty Physics tool. Now, normal swishing, like on Drippy, is fine, but it can tend to look a bit stiff. That's why, when animating, thank you Kona for teaching me about this because I didn't know before, you add your squish and your squash. It makes the piece feel more alive. The amount of time it would take to make that squish and squash manually look good and accurate would be absolutely insane. But that is where physics comes into play. Look at that tail. It has a flowy fin on it. I can set its a maximum squish and squash with a good old trusty Warp Deformer on a separate layer from the actual swimming motion of it going back and forth. Physics can then make that squish change based on the speed of the other swim animation. This leads to the fin having a more natural bounce to it, as if the Dragapult was actually swimming in water and experiencing the water resistance. It generally makes the end result look a lot better and avoids the uncanny valley that can sometimes occur. But, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to
Dragalotl. While Drippy play at the surface, Dragalotl rest on the lake bed below. It will launch itself at incredible speeds towards anything perceived as a threat to its children. The wave formed from this is capable of destroying docks and ships alike. I feel like the design direction I've gone with these water types has actually been such a big improvement on the last batch. I'm so happy with all of these guys, but we are not finished yet. Up next is Hatmarine. Hatmarine was actually a request from the comments, and we love a trans icon. So today, we will be making Hatmarine into a very cool space jellyfish. The jellyfish is actually based off of the Man of War. If you have seen one of those, I'll show a picture above, where the actual top of the jellyfish is more like a kind of, I don't know, spaceship for the little alien that is Hatmarine inside of the hair. I think it looks very cute. It looks so good. Oh, I love it. But Hatmarine's lore is already based off of being a deep forest witch, so we can just make that a deep sea witch instead, with a bunch of tentacles that actually absorb psychic energy from other people. Hatmarine already had one tentacle coming out from the hat, so we just add a couple more and make it a little jellyfish-like, you know? We also made the little place where Hatmarine is sitting more transparent to look more like a jellyfish. And the colors already lined up pretty well with the Man of War, so I kept Hatterine's colors almost exactly the same as her original body. And I didn't draw every leg tentacle, so that way Volaire can work their magic to make it move how they want.
Step 1 of Hatmarine. Finish Hatmarine. Why give the artist, the editor, and the audio engineer even more work to do? Just copy the pieces of the tentacles around, mix and match them a bit, and boom! Piece done. This being the final piece I did, I wanted to practice more with using keyframes in the animation tool. I wanted to change up timings and speed to see if I could get that kind of signature jellyfish float. The quick jump up with the slow glide down. All of the other tools that I used, I've already talked about, at least a little bit, so there's not much more to add. Not here at least, and not right now. Like I've said, I'm brand new to using Live 2D, and I'm using it to animate unordinary things, at least by tutorial standards. See, most tutorials are all about VTubers, which is great because I want to do that eventually in the future. But it's tricky to find tutorials about non-humanoid rigging. If there is interest in such a thing though, like rigging these Pokemon for example, then I'd be more than happy to make a tutorial on it myself. It'll be a process of learning between the both of us. But if you're interested, let Kona know in the comments, and maybe I'll be brought back to make one. Hopefully I'm brought back anyway. This was actually a lot of fun to do. It was nice to be here. My name is Volaire, and before I go, let me introduce you to the last, but certainly not least,
Hatmarine. Hatmarines are capable of harnessing the emotions of creatures caught in their tendrils. The natural panic of their prey is turned into powerful psychic waves, capable of knocking out entire schools of fish. Look at it go. I think this one is the favorite of the bunch for both me and Volaire. I don't know what else to say about it, because I don't have any gripes or qualms. Like, it's... You know, I normally have something to say about that stuff. Please, in the comments, give Volaire tons of encouragement so they want to come back. Let us know who was your favorite, who was your least favorite, and what would you have done differently to design these Pokemon as water types. Oh, and if you have a type you want us to do, or a specific Pokemon, also mention that. It's how we get some of those ideas flowing. And with that all wrapped up, good night and goodbye.